Welcome to Cut the Crop, keeping you in the know about everything you grow. Researchers, growers and other interesting folk delivering insights and information on topics ranging from agronomy to profitability. Brought to you by the Foundation for Arable Research.
Hello and welcome to Cut the Crop. I'm Anna Heslop and today my guest is FAR CEO Alison Stewart.
Hello again.
Well, it's hard to believe, but 2022 is drawing to a close, so it's a really good time to catch up with Alison and find out what's been high on the list of issues and achievements for FAR over the last 12 months. What are the key issues and achievements that FAR has been dealing with in the last 12 months?
Oh gosh, that's an open-ended question. With respect to COVID, we had to do the same as we have done in previous years. We've had to sort of change some of our face-to-face events to online, etc. But I think we've got so used to being able to swap things in at the last minute and respond to those situations that it really is almost business as usual for FAR now. And hopefully we are getting out of, those COVID constraints and we're not going to see them again. Probably I would say that 95% of what we had been wanting to achieve during the year, we've pretty well got over the line, which has been a real testament to the hard work and commitment that the staff have been making. So COVID aside, we've got all of our core activities that we've been focused on. We've got all of our crop protection work. We've been consistently and continuously improving our fungicide resistance management programs or weed resistance management programs. We've been testing new cultivars for performance. We've been doing a lot of agronomic work. We've been identifying pests and diseases, all the things that the growers would expect FAR we've been doing. And like last year, when we pulled together about 10 years worth of all of the work that we had been doing on sort of effective use of nitrogen fertilizers, we produced a really good booklet called The Confidence to Cut Back. And it was sort of trying to show growers that they could manage their nitrogen use on their crops more effectively. And we've done the same this year with all of the work that we've done on soils and soil quality, soil monitoring, etc. And we pulled that together into another FAR focus called Good Soil is Good Business. And that will be a fantastic resource for the growers to be able to give them an idea of all of the different things that they can do to improve the quality of the soil on their farm. So it's been a good year. We've done a lot of research across a very broad range of different areas, and we've also done a lot more extension than we've ever done. We often get criticised, you haven't done enough, herbicide resistance field walks. But the reality is that we haven't got the same ability to get the same gains, in certain areas because we've pretty well reached the maximum potential. And so we're always going to be mixing and matching new extension areas with reiterating messages, from previous research. So I think it's been a strong year. And I hope that the growers who have been attending all of the events have seen the value that they've been getting from their levy.
I'm going to put in another wee plug for this book because if you haven't seen it, it's available on the FAR website, or if you'd like a hard copy, just send us an email or phone and we'll put one in the post to you. It's a great book. Okay, the arable profile, the whole arable industry, there's been a lot of effort gone into reminding the world and the rest of New Zealand that New Zealand farming's not just about dairy and beef and sheep. What sorts of projects do you think have worked really well this year around that arable profile?
Arable profiling is always a difficult area for FAR because, we are an R&D organisation and we have to use the bulk of our levy money for, hardcore R&D. But we also recognise that the government agencies and the other sectors and the general public are probably not as familiar with the arable farm system as they are with some of the other farm systems, particularly things like dairy and beef and sheep farming. And when they're developing policies, they often don't take into account the complexities of an arable system. And so we've been very aware of the fact that if we're not out there explaining what arable is and the complexity of our system, that we could end up with some quite perverse outcomes. So we've got a promotion of the arable and a profiling of the arable to make the government and policy decision makers aware of it so that they can take it into account when they're developing policies. And then there's the general promoting arable as a valuable land use and promoting our produce to consumers so that they, if they would like, they can choose to purchase, produce that's been made from New Zealand grain or New Zealand seed. It's a challenging area. To do it really well, you probably need millions of dollars in marketing. We don't have that kind of resource. And so we just have to be very clever with the way in which we use our money. And we just interact with other agencies in the supply chain, other agencies who are promoting, like, a local food economy, Eat New Zealand. We've been working with Angela Clifford and just trying to get that story out, talking to celebrity chefs and, artisan bakers. So lots of small activities that hopefully will just slowly build a little bit of momentum. And I do think it's actually worked because we are starting to get people talking about the arable sector when, they didn't in the past. And we get a lot of agencies contacting FAR now, asking for input from FAR as a representative of the arable sectors. So whilst it's taking us a little bit out of our R&D space, I think it's really important in this current climate.
So, and the Arable Awards this year, that was the first time we've done them on such a large scale.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was a collaboration with United Wheat Growers and Federated Farmers and NZGSTA, and that was a fantastic event. I don't know why we haven't done it in the past, because everybody that came along just thought it was absolutely wonderful, and it's a great way of just celebrating, the success of our farmers and the people involved in the industry. And I'm looking forward to it again next year.
Yeah, August 2023. Growers Leading Change, that's the Knowledge Exchange program that's been running for 2 years now. That's still going great guns.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know me, I love this concept of a knowledge exchange platform where we're using growers to be able to interact and share sort of insights with other growers. I've been very pleased with how well it's gone. I think we've got a great team of facilitators that are out there in the regions working with growers, identifying, problems or challenges or opportunities, and then trying to create sort of projects that they can actually see some benefit, to themselves, and then share that knowledge with growers in the region. So definitely committed to continuing to invest in that kind of grower-to-grower interaction.
No, the growers are really enjoying it. They've got so many positive comments.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because, I know that when we first mooted the idea, some growers sort of said, complete waste of time, waste of FAR levy money. But I think that people are coming around and seeing that, again, in the current climate, getting people to talk to their neighbours about what works and what doesn't work. Not only is it from an educational and awareness point of view a really good idea, but just from a community health and wellness point of view, it's also really good.
That's actually something at Crops a couple of weeks ago. We had the Carr Family Trust with their health check set up. Now, can you remember the comments that we got back from the number of people who they saw on that day that really were quite stressed or had medical issues that would be worth following up reasonably quickly?
Oh, yes. I mean, I was actually quite stunned. One, I always sort of thought that there would be very few farmers that would actually bother to go and visit the van and get a health check. And we're finding that actually there's a lot that are. And then, the feedback was that, some of them really needed to go and get checked up, by their doctor sooner rather than later. And that's, a sign that all of the sectors are seeing. And we can understand why that is, because there's a lot going on in the agricultural sectors in New Zealand, and it's not easy. I suppose, looking to see what the pathway forward is, because you seem to be getting sort of completely lambasted by rules and regulations coming from all angles. But there are pathways through this, and that's what FAR's job is. In the environmental compliance space, our job is to identify and develop tools and technologies and be able to show growers how they can manage their farm system to be compliant in the least stressful and least financially onerous way. And it's really important that growers take up all of the opportunities and the guidance and support that FAR's giving them, because particularly with the emissions levy, with the Waka Eke Noa and the greenhouse gas emissions levy, that's going to happen in 2025, no matter what government is in there. And we have developed tools and technologies that, that our growers can use and that are available now. And the most important thing they can do is know their number. And, we've got our e-check calculator that can help them do that. Because if you know your number and you know how that number is made up, then you can make decisions around, how you're going to manage being able to pay that levy. And I always sort of think like knowledge is power, and it takes the stress away if you know exactly what it is that you have to do. So yes, that's the big take-home message for me is, if you've got a spare half hour, get onto e-check and know your number.
So Waka Eke Noa has taken up a lot of time of all of the arable industry, of all of New Zealand's agriculture industry this year. How has it sort of impacted on what FAR's been doing, and how has FAR been involved? I mean,
we're obviously involved because we have a number of, technical experts who can contribute to the technical side of the policy setting. And then obviously the chair of the board, originally Hugh Ritchie and now Steve Bierema, and myself, we've been involved more at the governance level, contributing to the industry perspective and working with the government, trying to identify what type of agreement that we can come to. It's not been easy trying to get 12 sectors to agree, and then those industry sectors to agree with the government is not an easy challenge. But I do actually think that we will be able to land something that will be palatable to both sides. And I know that, some people don't think that we should be in that space and that, we should walk away. But the reality is that the fallback position is the ETS, and that is certainly not something that we would ever want our growers to have to experience. And we will keep, fighting as much as we can to find a system that is fair and equitable, not only for our growers, but for everybody involved in agriculture.
So the other thing that's been taking up a bit of time this year would be biosecurity.
Yeah, I know. It's always, that's actually probably the thing that does keep me awake at night, is a major biosecurity incursion that has the potential to seriously undermine the industry. We had the blackgrass one earlier in the year, followed by the fall armyworm. But being part of SGRR, the Seed and Grain Readiness and Response Group, and being signed up to the GIA has certainly enabled us to be involved in the decision making sooner rather than later. And I do think that that's contributed to much better decisions and much more timely decisions being made, which ultimately I think has benefited the industry. So although it's very time consuming, it's very frustrating, it can be very challenging, it's absolutely something that we have to be in there, because, for example, if we had just allowed blackgrass to become established and take over, sort of South Canterbury or Canterbury, grain, we would be in the same situation as the UK, which is really not a situation that we would want to be in. So, yeah, those things are always, and we know that there'll be another lot of incursions either next year or the year after. So it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and we have to be ready.
And so working with SGRR, the Seed and Grain Readiness and Response, and the MPI Biosecurity Group seems to be going quite well.
If you look at it as a whole, absolutely better to be in the tent. It doesn't mean that there aren't challenges around, coming up with joint decisions that you're both comfortable with. But that's the nature of agriculture in New Zealand, that the government is taking a very strong viewpoint on a whole range of different things. And we have to respond in those situations where it's impacting on us. And I know that, we have Federated Farmers Arable section that, are focused very much on the policy and advocacy space. But I think it's really important that FAR supports them with as much of the technical R&D side as we possibly can.
So all of the work that FAR does is paid for by initially the FAR levy paid by our growers, but we get more than that, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. And I'm not sure that we've necessarily told this story as well as we could, because you don't really want to go out there and sort of blow your own trumpet. But the reality is that, for every dollar that the growers give us, we leverage, another $3 or $4 worth of R&D and extension work from, other funding sources, whether it's, other sectors or, collaborative work with the research institutes or a whole range of different government funding agencies or, commercial companies in some cases. So, we get our $5 or $6 million worth of money from the growers, and we leverage that up to, $15, $18 million. So it's really good value for money. It's still small compared to some of the other industries, but the reality is that I think that FAR delivers across such a much wider range of activities than, say, we did 10, 15 years ago. And I think that the growers just need to understand that the challenges facing the industry now are much broader, and we have to try and cover that breadth. And there is a balance with the money that we have. We constantly have to prioritise, and that's why it's really important that we have really proactive arable regional grower groups, and that we have our research and development advisory committee, and that we have a really strong members council, because that's the mechanism by which the growers can have input into what we're doing. And if they don't like, areas of work that we're doing and think we should be doing something else, there are absolutely means by which they can bring their voice to the table. And, we will always balance out what the growers want in the short term with what they may need in the long term, so that we always have some short-term reactive R&D, and then we have some long-term, more future-focused R&D. And, I think back to all of the early work that FAR did in the environmental compliance space. At the time, the growers didn't think that was good utilisation of FAR money, but the reality was that all of that work is now allowing them to more easily meet their compliance requirements. So we have to juggle that balancing act.
So there's a long-term future and there's a short-term future. What's on the cards for 2023?
Well, I suppose early in the year, in February, we've got our maize, sort of big maize event. We've got an international speaker coming over, Fred Belo, who's the sort of guru of sort of maize production. And that'll be really exciting because we have been investing more in the maize space. I mean, that was an area that we had been criticised for in the past, that we weren't investing enough. And over the last 18 months, I hope that the maize growers can see that we're doing a lot more R&D, we're doing a lot more extension, and that we've got these bigger events that we can promote and profile. So that's going to be something, if you're a maize grower, you should be going to that event. We've got our crops What's it called? What's it called? What's our conference called?
What's that conference called? The conference is called Growers Leading Change in 2023.
Yeah, so we've got that, and I'm really looking forward to that, because that came about because, not remembering the last conference that we had 2 years ago, it was research leading change, and you and I sat down there and said, wouldn't it be really neat to have one in 2 years' time where we could actually show how the growers were leading change? And that's exactly what we're going to do. And we're just working through at the moment, who the keynote speakers are going to be. But it's going to be very much focused on what the growers need to know to help them with their farm business, both in the short, medium and long term. And it will be growers talking about growers' experiences, as well as, all of the top international speakers. And then, of course, we've got the referendum.
Fun and games.
It's one of those things, we could sort of like go into electioneering mode, but all that does is detract us from doing what the growers want us to do, which is to get out there, do some good quality research and get out and tell them about it. So yes, we will use the next 9 months as an opportunity to promote what we're doing. But I think the best thing that we can do is just to show growers the value from the money that they invest into FAR. And if we're doing a good job, then that will take care of the referendum.
Okay, thanks very much, Alison. And growers, wishing you all the rain you need and all the sunshine you need at all the exact times that you need it. That would be nice, wouldn't it? And in the meantime, have a great day on the farm.
Thanks for tuning in to Cut the Crop, presented to you by FAR. If you'd like to know more about any of the topics discussed or have any suggestions for future topics, go to www.cutthecrop.co.nz.